Hey everybody, Denise Smith here. I know it's been a while, but I'm here back on All Things Small Business, talking about my favorite subject, small minority businesses, entrepreneurs. We got a great guest for you today. So what I want you to do is tune in, tell a friend, and join the conversation. Hello, everybody. I'm Denise Smith, the host of All Things Small Business. I know, again, it has been quite some time, but tonight we've got a real treat for you. I am not going to belabor this point, but this is, again, my favorite subject. How do we help small business owners be more successful, especially here in Prince George's County? Right. So my first guest is, and I'm not going to she's announcing a new name for her company. So I'm not going to tell you her name, but I'm not going to tell you the company name, but I am going to tell you her name. And just that there is a reason why the theme of this show is from city manager to CEO. So my guest tonight is Miranda Braatz.
Hi, Denise. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks for coming on tonight. You and I seem to have a lot in common, and I'm really excited about our conversation tonight.
I'm excited to talk to our audience, especially those in Prince George's County.
And I'm so excited. I'm going to give a shout out to Monica Bisco for bringing you to my attention, because I really think that some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight is really going to be extremely helpful for minority businesses here in Prince George's County. But first, let's just start with, because you've got a lot here. I'm looking at your bio. Let's just start off with why you refer to yourself or brand you and your company from city manager to CEO.
Well, I started off as the youngest city manager in the country, actually, in Prince George's County. I started my career in New Carrollton, which the transit hub of Prince George's County of the East Coast. And then I moved on to Mount Rainier as city manager. Mm-hmm. And after I left Mount Rainier, it was right before the pandemic started. And I began to think, well, I can go back into city management, or I can really pursue economic development and this expertise I've developed in economic development in urban areas and helping urban areas renew their population and their populace, especially those affected by displacement. Because I'm from northern Wisconsin. And when I was 15, all of the manufacturing jobs in the community I grew up in outsourced. Okay. So I had this experience where I really wanted to give back and help communities. And I thought that doing that through economic development was a natural transition into my entrepreneur role.
Okay. So you were city manager for about how long?
7 years collectively.
7 years collectively. How'd you come to Prince George's County, by the way? I mean, because it's the greatest place in the country.
I love Prince George's County. It's a great story, actually. I had graduated from my city manager institute at George Mason University. And they said, hey, here's your job in Fairfax County. You're going to be a management analyst. And I said, that seems not like quite the right fit for me. I want to work somewhere where I can really have an impact on the community. What do you think of Prince George's County? And they said, we're trying to get some contacts there for you, but we really hope you can, get into Prince George's County. We'd love to have somebody from our university be in city management there. Mm-hmm. So I made some phone calls and I came across a job posting for District Heights in community development. So I started my job.
I was born and raised in District Heights.
I love District Heights. There's so many restaurants there right now that I'm craving their food. Mm-hmm. So I actually started in community development in District Heights, mm-hmm. and I miss Marlboro Pike. I need to go and do some shopping there, especially at the women-owned businesses.
Okay, yeah. Woo-hoo.
It's a fun and exciting story, and honestly, the mayor of New Carrollton called me after a year and said, I heard you can get some things done. So why don't you come and work in New Carrollton? It's been such an amazing career. I'm so passionate about Prince George's County.
Oh, yeah, me too. Yeah, we share that. We definitely have that in common. So before we get to your company, what were you able to accomplish in those municipalities, before you decided to take that leap of faith and, become your own boss?
So one piece of advice I can give everybody is follow your passions, mm-hmm. and the opportunities will come. Mm-hmm. And while I was in New Carrollton, I started their economic development department. Mm-hmm. I started attending events. All of my colleagues and friends in the county executive's office were so grateful to have somebody from New Carrollton mm-hmm. in economic development that they opened a lot of opportunities and a lot of doors for mm-hmm. that community to progress in economic development. So when I kind of became known as somebody who could make things happen, as the mayor had asked, mm-hmm. and set up economic development departments, set up economic development incentive funds, and really attract businesses and jobs to the community, mm-hmm. that's when I got recruited to go to Mount Rainier, and I did the same thing there. Mm-hmm. And I really believe in authentic economic development and redevelopment, mm-hmm. and capitalizing on what your community has to offer, mm-hmm. with the concept of preventing displacement. Mm. Because as somebody who grew up in a community that had massive displacement, I understand what that's like.
Okay. What causes this displacement that you're talking about?
It really comes down to a change in the market. Mm-hmm. And when that change, a lot of people like to call it gentrification or mm-hmm. this and that. And I really just see it as a market change. Mm-hmm. Really, it's an income change. It's those mm-hmm. who have higher degrees of disposable income coming in, purchasing properties, and displacing those who move out. What communities fail to realize is there's things that you can do to prevent this from the get-go when you start to see that market shift. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of things in terms of authenticity and maintaining the authenticity of your community that you can do to ensure that you're preventing that displacement. I've worked mm-hmm. on H Street, Anacostia, Prince George's County, Baltimore, Milwaukee, the list goes on, but I really am passionate about that.
Okay. So let's get on to the real business of why we're here today. You became a CEO, from city manager to CEO. So let's talk about your company now and what it is that you do.
I founded a consulting firm called New American Economic Development Strategies. We're economic development consultants and disaster recovery experts for economies. So we've been busy in 2020.
I think so.
One of our largest clients is the state of Texas in hurricane economic relief. Mm-hmm. And we're running $100 million, one of the largest economic development incentive fund contracts in Texas right now. Mm. Okay. But that also led to a number of opportunities, Denise. And I think one thing that small business owners and entrepreneurs should know is keep all of your options open and don't be afraid to pivot. Mm-hmm. Because my main company, Economic Development Strategies, actually I own 5 companies. Mm-hmm. And so with one company, I was able to quickly pivot into other areas and opportunities as more and more doors opened over the last 2 years, mm-hmm. and diversify my portfolio. And that's why I'm happy to announce that I'm actually moving on from my consulting firm, and we're creating additional parent companies to house all of my 5 companies that I own. So I've created an enterprise company. I've grown so much as a small business owner that one consulting firm isn't enough now. I have to have an enterprise company to handle all of my holdings.
Wow.
So that's one piece of advice for small business owners who are growing.
So the 5 companies, how do they differ? What's their specific services?
So what's exciting about this is not only am I a consultant, not only am I an economic recovery expert, but I'm also a farmer. So you never know what is going to come across your desk when you're an entrepreneur. And you don't want to close the door to some of those business meetings where you're like, hey, this isn't necessarily in my industry, but hear it out. Let me hear what you have to say. So I would say my portfolio ranges from consulting to farming to affordable housing. And if I would have closed the door on any of those meetings or topics, I wouldn't be where I am today. And that's one key piece of advice that I would give other entrepreneurs is even if it's not in your industry or in your purview, don't be afraid to hear it out, listen, or have an idea.
Okay, so let's see. North American Economic Development Strategies. What do you do there?
I'm the CEO, and really where my expertise is in urban redevelopment for low to moderate income communities.
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of small business technical assistance training lately, especially in the young community.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Well, let me just say, you said urban redevelopment.
Yes.
So does that mean you are building businesses, or see? Because when I think redevelopment, I'm thinking, oftentimes it could really be anything in the community, whether it's construction or rehabbing places like that. So tell me what you mean by that when it comes to your company.
So for me, I really enjoy working in some of the areas that are looking to improve, areas that may struggle with policy issues, social issues, infrastructure issues. There's a number of clients across the nation and across the country that call me, and mayors will say, oh, I have an open air drug market on this corner. How can I fix it but maintain the authenticity and not over police? How do I incorporate my community policing strategy into my commercial district? Things like that. That's what I'm really passionate about, is just maintaining that authenticity, preventing displacement, and keeping the structure of that community, but also bringing in opportunities, training programs, infrastructure programs, and also just ensuring that the communities, whether they're low income or high income, that they have a sense of continuity, of equity, and I'll use the example in certain areas in Washington, D.C., when you cross a certain street from one district to another district. That is something that does not need to exist in 2021. That's equitable economic development financing. And whether you're in a low-income neighborhood or a high-income neighborhood, you should have the same rights to streets, sidewalk, street cleaning, and community policing.
Absolutely. Okay. So let's talk about your young entrepreneur program that you were talking to me about ahead of the show.
That one is my favorite. It is called How to Turn Your Side Hustle into a Full-Time Hustle and Paper Your Business.
I love it.
And we teach it in high schools.
Okay.
And it's geared towards the youth who it's side hustle culture. One of the things that I love about the younger generation is the side hustle. Everybody's got something going on, right?
That's right.
Well, how do you take that side hustle and really grow it into a small business? And when you're doing that, how do you make it a legitimate business? How do you paper your business, not in a financial term, but kind of, you want to make sure you have your business permits. You want to make sure you have your paperwork in order. And that's what we teach in the schools.
So does any of that involve financial literacy and, how to start, run, and grow and just keep it going? And
Absolutely.
who are your clients? Who are the young entrepreneurs that participate in your program, and where is this program taking place today?
So right now we're doing it in Washington, D.C. in the high schools there. And we do teach everything. We start from the very beginning of here's your business idea, and here's how you write a business plan. And then here's the next step after a business plan. Here's how you incorporate. And specifically, we really like to look at what apps you can use as a small business owner. Apps are really big right now, especially for incorporation.
When you say apps you can use or apps you can create?
Apps you can use. For example, I love Zen Business, which you can log on, and for X number of dollars, you can create a small business and file for a small business.
What's it called again?
Zenbusiness.com.
Oh, okay.
You can incorporate in any state.
Okay, so, and let's talk about some of those things that are, really helpful to small business owners, whether or not they're getting started or they just want to kind of refresh, kind of do a business reset and figure out what systems they need to look at to start making their business more efficient. What are some tools that people can use as they're trying to grow their business?
As you're trying to grow your business, I would definitely make sure that I would start by looking at what do you have existing? Do you have the basics in place? Are you enrolled in a finance program? Do you have QuickBooks? Do you have legal access and legal help? There's another app called Legal Shield for small businesses, $25 a month. You can call an attorney. I used it twice today. I'm not paying my regular attorney the $300 plus an hour. I'm paying $25 a month for small business Legal Shield. And I called them and they have an attorney call you back within 2 hours. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's one of the great, I highly recommend it to everybody, and it's very affordable. So for efficiency, I would really look at technology. For me, my efficiency has grown by looking at technology. I'm looking every 3 to 4 months, what new app is coming out? My IT firm told me, use PayPal for invoicing. Don't pay X number of dollars to a financial firm. Use PayPal for invoicing. And
so is PayPal, because I know you're talking about those merchant fees that you have to pay for like credit card transactions and things. So are you telling me that PayPal does not charge a fee at all? Because they do, right? They do.
They do. They charge a lesser fee than some of the financial firms that'll charge you to invoice everybody or everything, or some of the other accounting programs.
Okay. I use a program called Wave Apps. A friend of mine introduced me to that, and it was a software because I own a photography company and I'm just a one-person company at the time. And it was like QuickBooks, but everything it's online and it is free. There's a paid version of it. I think once you start getting into payroll features.
Yeah.
Have you heard of that one?
I've not heard of that one, but I would certainly be comparing the price compared to the payroll features in QuickBooks or a payroll firm.
Okay.
The apps have come a long way in our time in the last 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. Do you think you need payroll features if you don't have W-2 employees or versus independent contractors? Like if you're only using independent contractors or hiring independent contractors, do you need a payroll function? Can you just write them a check?
So I think that depends, and I'm not going to pretend to be a small business finance expert, but I'll tell you one of my secrets. I have all of my business bank accounts with one specific bank. And if I have a question like that, I'm not paying a consultant or a finance firm. I'm calling my banker and I'm asking them, what do you think? Because they'll give you an hour or two of free small business financial consulting because they want to keep your business bank account with them. And I did that just this week. Never, I'm not afraid to ask for help or look for the person who knows more than I do.
So, and then, that's another thing because a lot of minority businesses versus non-minority businesses will, they don't have that relationship that you really should have. That's one of the challenges. That's one of the reasons why they may not be getting access to funding, which I know we're going to talk about in a moment or two. But when they say that, it's like, well, who at the bank am I talking to? Right? Is it the teller? Who am I talking to? Is it the loan guy or is it the merchant person? When I'm asking these small business questions.
Yeah. And I'd say I have a business partner relationship with Aspira USA. And there's a minority small business technical assistance training program. And we actually do that training program bilingually. And there is a little bit of a cultural barrier there. And you want to make sure that you're putting yourself in a position to advocate and advocate and advocate for yourself. So the loan officer, not the best, but the small business banker is the person you do want to talk to. One piece of advice I can give just as a woman CEO and as a woman business owner is I'm not afraid to keep calling or asking until I get the right person. Because they need to talk to me just as much as they need to speak to the men. So I'm not afraid to advocate for myself or ask the questions.
Why do you think that? I mean, listen, I'm a big advocate for Black businesses. Why do you think that African-American entrepreneurs don't have that relationship? What is that barrier? What is it? Is it psychological or is it really, is it some unfair treatment going on? I mean, are they scared? What is it?
Well, I mean, there were the years of systematic oppression, but I mean, that is definitely one thing that's playing right now is there were just years and years of systematic oppression to African-American and minority businesses. And the one thing that I'm seeing right now in the industry and economic development and entrepreneurship is this reckoning on equity. And I can say that right now I'm seeing more and more discussions on acknowledging that there was systematic oppression and that our minority businesses are struggling a little bit and need to have those types of programs and buy-in to the same resources that the other business community had for years prior. And that also goes for women businesses as well.
Okay, so let's talk about funding sources, because one of the biggest challenges that I hear every day that African-American businesses face on a regular basis is access to capital. And you talked about some good news, right?
Absolutely. Where do you want me to start? I mean, what industry? There are so many programs. Why don't I start with agriculture? Because that's where I'm at in farming. So my business partner is actually African-American farmer. So I own half of a farm that's a Black farm, and it's great. I highly encourage anybody who might be looking for a small business to get into to look at agriculture, to look at farming, to look at non-traditional means of agriculture, to look at things, and I'll give an example of growing sea moss, for example, which is...
Oh, I just started dabbling in that a little bit. It's supposed to be really good for you. So I wanted to, so it's interesting that you brought that up. I don't even really know what it is. I just, take a tablespoon or two a day.
I take a tablespoon of sea moss in the mornings too, in my recovery from COVID. I had COVID. I'm a long hauler, actually. I still can't smell over a year later.
Really?
And Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
The CMOS is supposed to help with maintaining vitality and moving things through your blood.
Mm-hmm.
But CMOS is typically only grown in the Caribbean naturally, and has not made its way outside of like the very southern US and some areas in the East Coast. It has not made its way inland in the US.
Mm-hmm.
So I would highly recommend, if anybody who is looking to have an African American owned business, to look at agriculture, and especially those non-traditional means of agriculture like CMOS as funding programs. I am seeing through USDA, they will pay you to be a minority owned farmer. They are looking and begging to bring in equity into the agriculture community. I was just at a farming conference last week, and there was one person of color at the entire conference. There's definitely a gap there. And so USDA, in terms of farming, agriculture, non-traditional agriculture, start with just going to their website, request a phone call, and try and gain knowledge on what funding opportunities there are, because they are fully funding African American farmers right now. So
what does that mean? What does that mean, fully funding?
So if you incorporate, like you can go on zenbusiness.com, like I said, incorporate your business, and then call USDA and say, okay, I want to farm CMOS, and I want to distribute it in Chicago, Milwaukee, Ohio. You know, I'm looking for funding to do that. And that's where I would start the conversation.
Oh, okay. Okay. And what does that process look like? Well, and I want to talk about some others too, because I don't want to just talk about farming. What about other industries? You know, I mean, there's construction, there's IT, there's retail, you know, storefronts, and we know that the market for owning a business is shifting. You know, and we're going to have to start rethinking how we handle or deal with land use, different land use, projects, because the big box stores are not really doing well right now. So they're not necessarily going to be moving, and that's across the country, right? So what about, little storefronts and specialty shops and putting those in the communities and things like that? Is there some sort of financial help for African Americans that are looking to do that,
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things you can be is a small business owner right now, especially a minority or woman-owned bilingual small business owner. I get elected officials from all over the country that call me and say, can I get a woman-owned minority small business that does pet shops in this neighborhood? I want to place them right here. Can you help me find one? And I'm always calling around trying to find, the minority small business that owns pet shops. If I were a woman-owned, minority-owned, bilingual-owned small business, one of the top things on my list before I even choose a location, I would be calling at least 5 different cities and saying to those cities, hey, I'm a small business owner. I employ X number of people. I'm a minority or a woman-owned or bilingual business. I'm thinking about relocating in your community. What financial incentives are you willing to offer me? And what does that look like in writing? And that's the most exciting call for a city manager or an economic development director, because then all of a sudden you're like, okay, what financial incentives am I willing to offer? I got this program, that program, and you're putting together a package. I did that for years as a city manager. You need to, before you choose your location, before you pay rent, you need to be asking these communities that you're going to locate in, because you're the powerful business owner. They want you right now. You need to be asking for them, what financial incentives are you willing to offer me? That's where I would also start. Another avenue of funding that I'm seeing right now is the banks are coming out with equity programs, equity to increase equity in terms of financing for African-American businesses. So Northwestern Mutual just came out with, I don't remember the exact dollar amount on the fund, but it's well over $1 million+ to increase equity in African-American owned businesses in terms of financing. So I would certainly also, as a small business owner, be having that conversation. Subscribe to your bank's press announcements and emails. They always put it out that way. And just make sure you're kind of paying attention, because things like that can kind of go quick, and you have to be paying attention to make sure you're getting in on that first round of funding.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, or at least to where to go to find out about the information. So, and I'm sure that they can still pick up the phone and call, right? And still get the information that way as well.
Absolutely. SBA, which is an amazing resource for all small business owners. But also right now, look at USEDA, which is the United States Economic Development Administration. They've been coming out with a lot of recovery programs from the American Rescue Plan. And we're seeing a lot of funding for minority-owned businesses through EDA. So I also highly recommend that you subscribe to their emails and watch what they're putting out, because it's unprecedented, the number of programs and level of funding that they're getting through Congress right now.
Okay. And do they, I mean, those funding programs, are they funneled through like their state or their local jurisdiction, or how does that work?
So it depends. They actually just lifted a rule for indigenous Native American owned businesses that they can apply directly to the EDA programs. And so we're thinking that they might also do that for African American businesses. So that's just an example of, you have to be on the email list, you have to be paying attention, because that rule lift would allow for all privately owned businesses to apply directly to those federal programs. But normally your state or local government would apply to those programs and then funnel the money down to their local business community, which goes back to, you need to be discussing with your local entity where you locate your business.
Okay. Now, you said you provide technical assistance to some of your clients through your business. What does that look like? And how does a company who needs assistance or needs your services, where do they start?
So technical assistance can be anything from help me create a business plan or help me create a growth plan, down to some of my favorite clients. My favorite one right now is I'm actually helping a minority owned business help fix his paperwork over the last few years so that he can qualify for a large growth plan loan. And so that's what we call small business technical assistance. You can reach out to me. My website is na-eds.com. And my email is miranda@na-eds.com. And we can start the conversation there.
Okay. Miranda, thank you so much. It was so good talking to you and learning about all of these different things. I have a feeling I'm going to be calling on you again, because I do still have, more questions that I think that we need to be able to share here with businesses here in Prince George's County. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Denise.
All right. You have a great evening. Okay.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye. And that's our show for today. We learned a little bit about everything when it comes to starting a business, to funding for business, to urban redevelopment topics. So I just want to thank you all for tuning in and listening, because you never can get enough or too much advice from experts like Miranda and other guests that we have on this show. So I am going to say good night to you all, and thank you again for watching. And hopefully we'll be back. I'm actually going to be back Monday evening at 8:30, and we're going to be talking health and education in Prince George's County. So You all have a good night, and remember to tune in on Monday night.